Welcome to Lemme Finish, episode 11. I am your host, Figure 8. Last week, last two episodes actually, we had tag. Um, so we just kind of went over a lot of random shit that I had already talked about. We didn't move forward in the story. So I think at this point, Energetic, who we had met at the first show that me and Young Ned performed at, had joined the group and had pretty much taken over producing. He sent a lot of beats. Like, we are still releasing songs over the beats he sent us during this time. He was very good. He was from California and moved up here just before that first show, just like me. And it's an early point. He wasn't a fish yet, but we got our first beat from Esam. I did a feature for Justin Joy, and he produced that song, and he sat in my message requests for about 6 months before I even knew message requests existed. And right when I saw it, I messaged, because he was like, that song I gave to Justin Joy, that beat I did, that song's incredible. He said you were the feature on it. And that was the first time he sent me a pack of beats. He sent me like 15 to 20 once I finally opened up that message. So he wasn't a fish yet, but he still is one today, and this is the first time he appeared. There's been a few now, like me bringing up Makes Waves and Tyree. We're at the Fig and Swig album release in Troutdale. There's a few times where we cross paths with people that would eventually become fish, and we sometimes didn't even know until later on. Actually, that's the next story I have is around the time Energetic joined. Swiggle took me to a Mike Bars video shoot, and Mike Bars is just this white rapper from the town who kind of blew up off cringe music in high school, and then he went to horrorcore, and now he makes like pop music, like conscious pop music. It's interesting. He's a big deal here for sure. But he was having this video shoot on the roof of a parking garage with a bunch of Jeeps, and there was a ton of rappers there, and Token, who is currently, like third in charge of the Fish, was one of the people on that roof, and I didn't know that until later, until like watching the video again after like getting to know him. I noticed that we were both there that day, and it was another time I had met a Fish early on in the canon of the Fish verse. Right after that, we filmed the video for Business. Ellis shot that one, so it was like me, Muffin, Ellis, Lai, and Swiggle, and we drove around for like 8 hours just filming in these random ass places. I forget what the date was, but it would be pretty easy to check, because I hadn't listened to Eminem in like 2 or 3 years at that point. I tried to not listen to him at all when I moved here and just like listen to West Coast music. And he dropped a surprise album, and like I was connected to the Bluetooth speaker for the music video still. So when I saw he dropped the surprise album, I hit play, and it was, man, really rough to play in the middle of public in front of your rapper friends. It was pretty terrible. We all laughed at it. I like that album now, but whatever day Kamikaze came out is the day we shot the Business video. We started at Pioneer Square, and there was really this shitty, loose concept that we had a briefcase that had something important in it because the song was called Business. And there's a tag had to have been there too, because there's a point in the video where we were sitting there chilling at Pioneer Square, and Tag runs up to the table and grabs the briefcase and just Bugs Bunnies the fuck away. And then we went up to Crown Point out in Corbett. We went pretty much to the top of a mountain, and Muffin bought everybody sunglasses like we were gonna dress in unison, like we were going on a road trip. And I think he's the only one that wears those sunglasses in the video. And we did a couple of takes of me, Swiggle, and Lai doing our verses on the mountain, and Muffin and Tag are just in the background shoveling, just digging something. I don't know what. There's so many things when I went to rewatch the video to talk about it that made no sense. Like the ending of the video, and I had forgotten about this mostly, was Swiggle, Tag, Young Ned, and Muffin eating spaghetti. I remember Muffin boiled like so much spaghetti and made so much spaghetti for this scene, and then they did that thing where they like lift the rounded pot off my head, and I was in the table, and I did the rest of the song from inside the table. And I do remember being under that table and it being like the stupidest thing we had ever done for sure. Like Swiggle was tapping my head with forks underneath a bowl. They were rattling my shit. Everyone started throwing spaghetti at people by the end of it. It's still the reason I think we're so tight with Swiggle. And I know a lot of people in the scene know Swiggle or work with Swiggle, but like 6-7 years ago we were throwing spaghetti at each other with my head coming through a table. There's a reason we consider him a fish, and he talks about it so much in songs. It's because we've been doing stupid shit in front of cameras for almost a full decade, coming up here pretty soon. Just after that, though, I did join La Familia. There was a show at Kelly's Olympian, I believe. My sister was there, and Swiggle was like, let's do. Well, actually, the day before, we were talking about it and joking around. I was like, bro, if you made La Familia, I would go tat it on my hand right now. And he was like, let's go. And we just drove to a tattoo shop, and I got LFGM tatted on my thumb. And then the next day, we had a show at Kelly's Olympian. A lot of the fish and my sister were there, and he announced that I was a part of LFGM. There's a video of us doing fucking Twisting Up Again with me in like a 5X t-shirt and a hat that didn't fit. It was in joggers. Fashion hadn't clicked with me or Young Ned quite at all yet, or Ellis, honestly, or still J Mel. I wouldn't say we're known for fashion for sure. Some of us like to pretend we are, but most of us are not. Right after, or maybe even right before I joined LFGM, Ellis ended up leaving and going back to Michigan kind of abruptly, and we lost most contact with him pretty quick, but Muffin stayed. So I started working really heavily with Muffin. Like almost all of my songs from that period, that early time, like Never, Icarus, the stupid Christmas thing, were all Muffin's beats. So I believe that is when Troutdale House fell apart. Right when Ellis left, I ended up moving, maybe not even anywhere. I started just couch hopping and doing more shows, and then Muffin and Tag got an apartment, which was still known as Fishpartment, even though nobody lives there. I think it was Muffin and Tag, and then maybe G-Tech was staying on the floor there. No, he wouldn't have necessarily come around yet, probably. I think it was 2 months after. Well, eventually me, G-Tech, and a lot of other people ended up on that floor. But at first, it was just Muffin, Tag, and Maria in that apartment in Gresham. And I was going over there a lot to work with Muffin right after I joined La Familia. Muffin produced a lot of what ended up on the Fig and Swig tape and those early songs I was doing with Timmy and Lai. Right around that time, Swiggle finally got us booked for our first show at Young Ned's mom's bar, which was the Bit House Saloon. She used to own that, and we had been fighting to try to get her to give us a show. And then like one of the promoters that she really respects heard that we were doing music with Swiggle and was like blown away that we were working with Swiggle, so she let us and Swiggle throw a show there. I believe that was, I forget, Port Lamsterdam, I believe is what it was called. It was like a yellow, maybe pink flyer. I'll try and put it in the link up if I can find it, but that was a big ass show, and it did really well, and she immediately let us do a couple more. Right after that is when me and Muffin made Icarus, which I played for Swiggle the next day. Within 2 weeks had gone and recorded, and then within a month after that I put out a video with Collective Films for it. And looking back, it's a pretty terrible song, but man, it meant something to me and a lot of people during that time. I got a lot of fans who are still my fans that's the first time I can pinpoint just a piece of art I made that created like a real connection with people and like a monetary increase. Like I sold a lot of merch right when that song came out. A lot of people wanted to support what I was doing based on the content of that, and it was cool to be like so involved with Muffin making that. I literally said, find me a beat that I couldn't possibly make sad, and then my goal was to make it sad. And I think we both accomplished and didn't accomplish that. It's a bit too long, it's a bit too rudimentary and corny, but there's a lot of good there still, and it's like my first song that I felt like was actually decent. I wouldn't have gotten better if it wasn't from there. I know I keep talking about how um, Timmy telling me I sucked was going to play such an important role in this, and then literally that night was the night I started doing like a deep dive onto the Facebook timeline and realizing how far away I was from that happening. But Icarus is getting pretty fucking close to that. So right after that was, I'll probably end this episode with the story. Swiggle took me and Justin Joy to Ramps and Amps, which was a show that D Marks, another dude in the town, was throwing at a skate park. And pretty much right when I got there, D Marks introduced me to Avery, who would eventually end up being a fish. Um, I met Vincent is Sad and saw him perform, who I ended up making a whole album with. He's done 20 plus features with the fish. I met Dirty Black outside at the end of the show during this big fucking violent altercation between some other people who ended up being a fish. And at one point during the show, one of the performers did that thing where they fucking jump up, like, remember me, look at me, I'm on top of the speaker type bullshit. And it actually exploded. Like, it cracked a little bit, and then smoke started coming up, and he jumped off, and then it just went up in flames. And then they had to go find another speaker to get it going again. But I also saw there was a dude in the crowd in the front row who had like a 9 or 10 year old, and they were just jamming out to the hip hop. They both had merch on their bodies that was on sale there, so they bought that merch and put it on. And I felt like I had seen him on Facebook saying that he made beats or something, so I wanted to go talk to him. But the dude was doing a call and response, the performer, and he was like, say do that, do it, or whatever. And he would hold the mic up to this guy's kid and he would say it. And then he said, say fuck that shit, and held the mic up to this guy's kid, and he just started crying and crying. And I saw him be like a hella good dad, take his kid away, but also make sure the performer know that like he didn't do anything wrong. He was just trying to make the kid have a good time. And then the performer ran over and gave the kid a t-shirt, and it was cool. It was cool to watch from afar, but I didn't end up talking to him that night. But I looked him up again on Facebook the next day, and that man was Chimbonus Beats, who very shortly after that, I hit him up and was like, hey man, I saw you the other night. That looked like a tough experience to be in, but I hope your kid ended up with a good memory of a hip-hop show. And he said he did. He was excited about the shirt, blah, blah, blah. And I told him I rapped. I was from Michigan. I moved here, and I had this little group called the Antelope Fishermen I was working on. And he immediately was like, what's your email? I'll send you some beats. And I had bought 2 videos from DeAndre when I bought Icarus. So I went to the studio that weekend with somebody else, and they were like, hey, I have some extra time for you to do something. And I recorded a song called Welcome to My Generation. My Generation, this is my... I don't remember what it is. It's not very good. But it was over at Jimbo Beat. The beat is very good. And I immediately shot a video for it and sent it to him. And Jimbo was really used to... Like, he had worked with some of his friends over time and sold a couple of beats on BeatStars. But he was really used to local rappers tugging his dick a little bit and asking for a beat and not doing anything with it, or sending him some shitty recorded thing. And, like... I, within a week or 2 weeks, sent him a professionally recorded song with a professional 4K video that I had shot to his beat, and he was super hyped about it. And after that, I think he sent me a pack of 20. He asked me for a feature and sent me a little money for my next studio session. But honestly, all that came from that D-Mark show where I met, even though Avery's not a fish now, I met 3 total people that would end up being a fish, and Vincent, who... I still consider a pretty good friend. We saw him recently at one of our shows, and it was, you know, like we hadn't missed a beat. So that D-Mark show is essential to the fish lore. It comes up a lot. Honestly, the stuff I don't even want to talk about from it, the way Dirty handled a situation outside should be studied. Like, it was a historic de-escalation, if I've ever seen one, at an all-ages event at a skate park. Yeah, so I think I'll probably start next week with the Mike Jones story and probably a little bit of G-Tech. But at this point, the fish have shifted a lot. We've lost some people, we've gained some people, and we're starting to at least get a groove of putting out our own music and not just doing features and dropping solo Fig songs, because I was working with Swiggle and Lie and everybody a lot. But yeah, Mike Jones is coming up, and so is a couple more fish. So thank you for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, before I am interrupted, let me finish.